Welcome to Small But Massive Podcast, episode 12, I think. And for anybody out there, we've done a few podcasts. You can check them all out. But today's guest, I'd like to welcome Roisin Donald Rowe, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, artist. You are welcome.
Thank you so much
Small
for
But Massive Podcast. And Mr. Liam Craig, musician, performer, artist, manager, producer, lecturer, founder of Primitive Sound and creative agency. And I think MusicBlue was another reconnection with yourself, and Rowe with for merch we'll get on to after. You're both welcome. Liam, I have known you a good long time.
Oh, aye.
And I think we'll just say Rowe as the artist. Roisin will go from here for Rowe. Is Rowe all right?
Yeah.
So Rowe is the artist here. Liam is also a manager of Roisin. So Roisin, I'll just start off with your good self. What kind of music did you grow up with when you were, younger? You're still pretty young, but say when you were like inspirations when you were maybe at school or primary school or secondary school. I know with Liam now, when you went to tech, it was a great inspiration. So do you want to tell people out there, maybe some of your fans that don't really know about you growing up and where you grew up at and what size of a family you're from?
So I grew up with music because my dad would take us to a lot of concerts when I was younger. And my mum would make us do piano lessons, so that's kind of how that came together. But my dad is a massive U2 fan, so we'd always go see them. And around the house there was always Thin Lizzy, who else? Yeah, Thin Lizzy, U2, Bruce Springsteen, all the big ones.
The big ones.
So that was a massive inspiration to me whenever I was younger. And then my brother started getting into music, so I'd listen to a lot of the stuff that he listened to, so Modest Mouse, Queens of Stone Age, stuff like that.
Ding, ding, and then, ding, 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 ding.
And then whenever I got a little bit older, I started going into secondhand CD shops and totally just judging books by their covers, buying CDs that I thought looked cool. So a lot of the bands that I still listen to today came from doing that. Like Bombay Bicycle Club was one that I always remember. Yeah. Death Cab for Cutie, stuff like that. So my music taste has changed a lot over the years, but whenever I was growing up, it was definitely a lot heavier, kind of rockier.
Yeah. That's because your parents' influence probably would have been there.
Yeah, 100%. So,
but they were all pretty good artists that you were having to listen to at the time, and lots of people would have been into it at the time.
Definitely. So that's kind of where I really got excited about music, was because I was listening to all these bands that were doing big things, And
so the likes of Liam, your good self, I've known you as a performer, bass player in bands at the festival back in the day of Glasgowbury, and how you've progressed on yourself as an individual, and always loving to play, always loving to perform. And I was reading, sometimes I suppose people might know about you is that you've produced many different types of tracks out there. Dance, I know there's one recently coming up, a chat about that you've worked on. So for yourself, Liam, what was it like for you growing up in Derry City when you were younger, and bands? And because there may have been more people, was there, involved then in music?
See, I'm not from Derry City. I've just adopted the accent and been there so long that people just always assume it. But
I thought you were...
No, I'm a blow-in. I grew up in Belfast.
There you go, lad. Well, see, you're very posh.
See?
You got a point. What do you think? I thought he was a hip. Hey,
still have my secrets,
Jeez, that's deadly.
But no, I grew up. I grew up in Belfast. I moved to Derry when I was 21, so I've been there like 13, 14 years now. But I know grew up in Belfast. But I mean, the scene was small and insular and heavy. It's kind of a bit like what we were saying earlier. It's like didn't seem to be anything that was...
Do you want to talk about that, about so people like for the young generation of Rowe understand?
Yeah, I mean, it was you're talking like even pre and so I watched him from afar.
Yeah.
Everything was punk, stoner rock, a lot of ska. I remember kind of beating about whenever I was growing up, and I think that was my early experiences into being a producer, was all these punk bands who hadn't a clue how to do anything. And here was me, who had spent a wee bit of money on having a couple of microphones, and be all, here, John, just give us, come on, record our drums and make us sound lethal. And a punk band's back then our punk band standards weren't particularly high. So you could be 17 and go and record a punk band, and you'd be all, oh God, I don't know about that, but they'd be all, this is the best thing that's ever happened,
because it's spontaneous.
So
there's a bit of art going on there.
But that was the lay of the land then. And that fitted me perfectly, because I grew up like in my sort of teenage years. I like everybody finds their bit of music that they're into when they're sort of 13, 14. Mine was punk. So growing up producing punk bands that kind of worked really well for me, and that's what was around as well.
Them older punk bands that would have still been in Belfast from the past, like the Outcasts and all them.
They were still. They still would have been floating around about then. And then there was this whole new batch cropping up around the same time as, again, just before Pocket Billiards. So there was a whole bunch of bands that were kind of coming up in and around them as well. And but then you had it was interesting because there was a whole bunch of bands that started bringing hip hop into punk. And that was my first proper exposure to hip hop locally. It wasn't through the hip hop rock stuff, or it wasn't through like pure hip hop. It was people who were rapping over punk songs. So the likes of Brandy, who was in B McC and Bombs 87. Likes of him. Like that was my first exposure to it live. So
they were probably the I suppose in a sense the trailblazers in a way.
Yeah.
For what actually is now probably more cleaner, more produced, and all that. And what at that time then, when you were in Belfast, then what took you then out of that whole scene in Belfast to just, you mentioned production there, was that something you wanted to do from the very start?
I didn't know, for years I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was studying music in school, so I was doing A-level proper classical music, like playing viola and playing orchestras and choirs. And then whenever it came to sort of university time, I just knew that I had enough savvy about me then to know that I didn't want to do that, and there wasn't any money in it. I also just wasn't good enough. Like, I mean, classical is one of those words where if you're really good, you can make money. Everybody else just ends up, teaching or doing whatever. I knew kind of fairly early on that that's not what I was going to do. And so it's sort of around the same time that I started getting interested. I just wanted to record my own band because we were broke and didn't have any money going to the studio. So you started scrounging bits of gear off people to record. And then I ended, whenever it came to going to uni, instead of going to do music like everybody else I knew did, I went and did music technology so that I could kind of go and immerse myself in doing studio stuff. And so whenever I finished that, I just started applying for any job that had the word music in the title, and one of them was lecturer in music in the tech in Derry, and that's how I ended up in Derry. And
so at that time, I suppose that people will go back a wee bit to like where it's in the tech where you'd have met Roisin Rowe, but just go back till around 2013, the City of Culture, which was a massive year for your home city. And were you involved at that time in the City of Culture? Right, or what do you mean, too young? Or?
City of Culture, it was the first time I got really inspired by it, because I got to see, was it the Other Voices show in the Glassworks? So
Brilliant.
That was like Little Bear, Daughter, and somebody else played as well. But it was just after that I got into it and started doing the Nerve Centre stuff and all the music hothouses, and really, really stuck into it.
With Marty McGill.
With Marty McGill,
And Music Hothouses, for people out there, is a youth music programme run by Marty McGill in the Nerve Centre. And it happens every year, so people can get involved for young people. And obviously it was a great inspiration for yourself, that because you're here now. There was music for everyone. And but I suppose, like anything that big, there's always people say we want it more, or we could have done this, but
because that was the last time there was like proper gigs in the Nerve Centre, wasn't it? Was that the year that like Bombay played?
Yeah, they were flat out for a while, like all the
because like there's been a while since like touring bands would come through Derry. I mean, I don't want to rip on Derry, and there's many solvable problems with things like that. But yeah, I think like 20 maybe we got it for a year after, but it was around then that was the last time we were getting proper touring bands coming through the town.
I think that time, I suppose, like in insight and hindsight and forward thinking vision is all good, but sometimes when you're in among something, and if you were a programmer and something like that, you maybe get your head on 5 or 6 different big events, and some might go better than others, but it's all trial and error. And I suppose you had the high end art, you had the Turner Prize, and then you've got to the grassroots with the Music Promise and all the young people getting involved. And I suppose that's what big, just hitting on what you said there, Liam, that's what big bands appearing does for young people.
I think there's probably a whole generation of people of younger, well, say younger ones, younger than me anyway, whose first big gig was probably that one big weekend. It was on that year, like that was their first, like, oh my god, like Bruno Mars in Derry, or whoever it is, that's You know, I think
That
that's important. That's
that was-
really important.
That was a massive gig. And were you at that gig?
Yeah.
And as I say,
It's mad when you go back and look at it now, because I didn't fully appreciate it at the time. But see, when you go back and look at the lineup for what I don't have my phone to Google, but if you were to Google that lineup now and look at it,
Alt
it's
J and all that,
crazy.
yeah.
That was
Macklemore. I'm not even going to try and guess it, but the lineup was unbelievable.
so see the likes of, you were saying there, that inspiration and of the likes of festivals and things, and seeing them big bands. What do you feel now, Ro, would be inspirational for young people growing up? I know that I tend to, and in opportunities and things, I tend to avoid the mask chat here, right? So it's kind of like, imagine now we're ticking out of hockey. I feel that we, for 2 years, artists and creative people have been blinkered, a bit like a national, Grand National, where you want to go out, but you're not sure where you're running to.
Yeah.
And somebody says, just keep going straight, and don't look right or left, Paddy. What about the fences, Paddy? Don't worry about the fences, just go over them and down. So what about now, do you think, for young people, Roisin, to get, inspirations? What is it out there? Is it online, YouTube, or where's the instant sort of, oh, I love that tune there? Or,
I think TikTok is a big one for young people at the minute. It's kind of where there's TikTok stars and everything now. So I think that's something that I'm still wrapping my head around. I don't get it. That makes me feel old, but it's definitely like an online thing is really, really engaging for young people, I think. So that's why a lot of the promotion and marketing is aimed online, because so many people use it.
Yeah.
Young people are really, really into it. But also I think like programs such as the Music Hothouse and the Nerve Centre are really, really important, especially now because the schools are kind of axing music programs, and it doesn't feel as important in the educational side of things. So I think that it's definitely a must for these projects such as the Nerve Centre to be funded and funded really, really well, because it's one of the only places young people get to go now to figure out what they want to do and learn guitar and learn piano and not feel like they can't do it because they've nowhere to go.
You mentioned TikTok there. Is that something now that you'll build, for yourself, say, having a release? Obviously, Liam, you can take us through that, for the likes of Ro. When you're just sitting down and say, for instance, we're about to release a single, years ago, it would have been the 4 famous P's, Liam, the 4 P's, as they said, the packaging, the promotion, and the price, and, and all this stuff, and performance, and all these things. But there's so many different P's now, the perseverance, and there's been sort of, I suppose, not saying that everything has to be, perfectionism, because there seems to be a lot of online content now that's all about perfectionism rather than reality. So maybe I'm wrong here saying this, but I think the more artists that come out with a reality check and might actually have more fans than they think from that whole, this is me every day. There's something about that, waking up, I'm having a coffee, I'm about to go to Liam, I'm about to write the new single. It probably gets as many views as a single you put $5,000 in. I know there's a man just sat down beside me and I flicked a pancake one day and we got more views than fucking U2 probably got when they released one. I wish. But do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
So you have so many different platforms now to look at. They're out there and they're all sort of sort of and webbing into each other. So what about yourselves when you're doing a release, Liam and Ro? What's your starting point?
For me, whenever it comes to marketing online, I like to be as honest as possible. And I think that a lot of artists are like that now, where maybe a couple of years ago it was all about perfection and about everything being incredible all the time. You're always doing something, but I think artists now are realizing that that's not reality, and you shouldn't be pushing that onto people because it's not real life. So whenever it comes to promotion, I'm very honest with the writing process and with how I got there and what thoughts were going through my head whenever I was writing the song, and whenever it comes to releasing it, it's just, I think being vocal online is the main thing. It doesn't matter if you want to put this perfect version of yourself out online or if you want to be completely honest with all the bad days and all the bits and bobs going on. And
it's hard too, isn't it, to get that, strength within yourself. Like we're sitting here now even to do this, and there's nothing ever nothing ever easy in the whole
Yeah.
multimedia world. And but I think you're right in that approach that there's something about just being honest and being yourself.
Yeah.
And and just pausing at that there, I was thinking, how did you two then sort of, and obviously you met, and was it, do you want to tell the story then, Liam, about how you both met to try and get the first music out?
I
The back smoking fags and drinking Buckfast. No?
So-
was it anything cool like that? No. Drinking coffee without any sugar in it, Patrick.
You were saying I teach music production and like music business in the tech. And so when Ro was there, did I meet you in your first or second year?
I think it might have been second year.
Second year.
Because it was that album.
Oh yeah.
Sent
So
album thing.
Ro had been there and was like sort of floating around, and I was in the studio just teaching studio stuff. And there was this small ginger kid who used to lurk around my classes and like asked to come into my classes to sit and do her theory homework in the back of my studio classes, and that turned out to be her. And I can't remember. I honestly, there's a big
I like your
blur.
style there. I like that there. You're a bit like me, that story I told you earlier on about my face days. Kicked out of the room. Yeah.
So she's come into my class and do her theory homework, and then at some point we were just chatting because you were just lurking, and
That
then
makes me sound really creepy.
lurking in like a positive way.
I would call it. I would call it keenness. Right? You were keen to get in to meet the man to try and, I suppose, say what you had to say, which was, please record me.
I think there was songs. You had already had a couple of songs, and I think I asked you to hear the songs because there was a project we were doing, and I had to get you to write something. So like there was like a whole bunch of she was playing with a band, and they had I was like, has anybody got an original song so that they can do something? And this one band came in, and the song was great, and it turned out that you had written it. I can't even remember the name of the song or how it went, but then I was like, oh, do you do your own stuff as well? And then you played me Ghost,
Yeah.
like a really early version of Ghost, which was like the first ever single. And I just thought it was amazing. I think it was like one of the best written things I'd ever heard. And the fact that you were like 16 or 17 at the time, like it was just so good. And so like I was like, yeah, let me produce this for you. And then because of like having worked with like supports and with Best Boy Grip and all these, and it's like I knew some people, so like I could say,
but you had a good
done, let's
very-
send it to Steve McCauley because I know him sort of from doing other things, and
But that's what it's all about. It's building that network of people and organizations and promoters and
which I
agents.
didn't realize I had been doing, but I had been doing for like years before I actually started being an actual manager. I just didn't realize.
Could I just say, as a manager, I thought you come in with the scoff and all, but you didn't. You come in who you were. I respect that, But I suppose if this had been the wonder,
She takes piss on me because she says like I dress like a major label A&R guy.
Look, I like a man all in black like myself. It's good. And see the likes of your writing style then. Do you come like with an idea at the start, or you said earlier on about listening to multi different types of bands, and I've seen you live, and you've done both on your own and with a band, and so I suppose they're different machines. Do you feel more comfortable on your own or with the band? Because I know with the band, it is you're out the front, and as Liam knows, it being a singer, playing and all, it's not easy, and especially on your own. So. For people out there, just, for your fans and the many fans you intend to gain in years to come, what's your process, just putting it all together from scratch? Like, do you just sit and do me words, a lot of words first, or do you do your rhythm, or what way does it go about? Or does it come from divine inspiration? Because sometimes sometimes people say, where'd that song come from? The other side, Patrick. And it just comes on. Do you know what I mean by that, Liam? And it's a really cool, cool answer. So.
Yeah. The songs for me, I used to say it used to start in different ways, like whether it's chords or lyrics or melody, but I've noticed recently that a lot of them start with like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. thoughts whenever I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And so it usually starts with the premise of the song, So whether it's a story about me or somebody that I love, or, you know, something that I feel really passionate about. So that's where everything stems from. And then the next day, I usually look at the notes on my phone from having to turn around at like 2 a.m. in the morning to write something down. And then the chords come. Then I really like to write either on guitar or piano, just because I like the simplicity of it. Like I like just sitting down with something and working something out, whether it takes an hour or a day, you know. So, and then demo it on my phone, just using the voice notes app, and then I send it to Liam, and usually then we work on it, go in the studio, record it, and then we go out and play it with a band. Or not, it's usually the other way around. I'm usually playing it with a band and then we record it. But this year it was completely different. We recorded everything and then the show started up again. But whenever it comes to playing on my own versus playing with a band, it's a completely different experience. You know, like I think after this year, something switched in my brain where I thought that it felt like the right time to do something different on stage and musically as well. So working with Jay and Sippy, it's been so much fun. Like it's just, it's really nice looking around on the stage and seeing other people you can connect with going through the same thing. So
for, I suppose, for yourself, being, you know, expressing yourself, it is all right to have a bit of comfort each side, I'm sure, because you're stepping out in some stages which are pretty big, and credit to you being so young, which people should know out there, that it's not easy to step out in front of a stage here, there and everywhere all around, where you're at now, which is great. But the thing is, I suppose it's all a learning process. And you just said there about a new sound. Way back, couple of years back, you were part of 3 of 3, a part of Help Musicians UK initiative. There was Roe, there was the Woodburn Savages and Sam Wickens. Now I can say all people that have been in this building now, you were the last to come in, so there's one for you. And you're most welcome. And so I know from the experience at the time, for Paul Connolly and the guys, they were rehearsing just beyond these walls here, and the whole album was rehearsed and written out there, and it was to me it was a brilliant initiative. For them it gave certain support structures, as they spoke to me about. For the likes of yourselves, Liam and Ro, what did it do for you as artist and manager at the time? And how did you feel? You know, when it's great to get supported. You know?
It allowed us. Well, I actually was speaking about this with somebody fairly recently, and one of the things that I said, I actually think it allowed us to sort of make mistakes a little bit, because you knew that you had this. There was a bit of money, and there was 3 years of help and support and development and one-on-ones and all this sort of stuff. So there was definitely an element of being able to make a mistake early, of going, trying to work with a certain company or trying to do something a certain way and it not working out exactly as you thought, but you knowing right, there's a bit of a safety net here for the next little while, and we can kind of get up and go again. That plus the opportunity just to network, and it's funny because like we've been talking about this today, it just keeps coming back to networking, you know. So they were able to put us into rooms with people who were good people to know, or if we were doing a festival somewhere, then they would say, oh well, come along to this event, and there would be a whole bunch of people, or just getting introductions to different people through their network, and then having, like I said, having those one-on-one opportunities to like sit down with somebody from a distributor or somebody from a PR company or somebody who's
publisher,
and just to be able to just to sit down for a good hour and a half and pick their brains and ask the kind of questions that you wouldn't get to ask at like a normal panel thing
or a conference, because it's too open. You need to stand outside the front at the end and get the people. I shouldn't be telling people out there that technique here, but it does work.
But it's exactly that moment of like waiting for them after the conference. Imagine getting that for an hour and a half once a month for 2-3 years. Like that was worth its weight in gold, And a lot of those people that we met were still people that we can like if we need a favor, if we need to ask for an introduction to somebody, or like still people that we can call up now and go, hey, can you help us out with this thing, or can you give us a bit of advice on that, you know?
And for people out there, you know, that I don't know if they'll ever do it again, or for other artists, you know, that maybe they would do a program like that again. What would, like, from what I listened to yourself there and the guys in the wood burning, it's a great support mechanism for you, and I think it's a great sort of. I think it's great belief. You know what I mean? And I was aware of it at that time, so I was, and I think the 3 acts that got it was really good and was diversified, and you know, and there were 3 definitely that I was. Quite happy when they came out, and I think it showed that what we were saying here on about the different styles of music, you know, and it was good that like there's Sam, and then there's Good Sapro, and then the Burners were the band, you know, and I think, and so for the likes of yourselves there, then how do you, Liam? You were just saying there about networking. For people out there, you know what I mean. When you were talking about networking there, have you got a list now? As say like. We're starting and we're just about to drop a new song, and do you have a distribution of people that you want it to sit with, and it just all goes at the one time, or is it over a period of time?
It sort of depends, and there's certain people that you would give it to a little bit earlier than others, just even people that you know and you respect and you want their opinion on, and you kind of, you know, maybe somebody you're trying to line up for the first place. So like for us, like outside of like the row bubble, like Steve McCauley is probably usually the first person that will get sent something, just because we really like, he's been so supportive of everything we've done over the last while, that whenever we're not, whenever there's not a PR company saying, hey, this person on this radio station wants to premiere it, if that hasn't been lined up, then usually we'll go to Stephen and say, hey Stephen, you play it first, because it's a bit of kudos for him, and it's just I mean, there's not a lot of ways we can give back to Stephen for the amount of support he's given us, but any wee thing that we can, we try to, you know.
Well, people out there listening, the man in question is Steve McCauley, BBC Radio Foyle, Electric Mainline, who has been a great supporter of new music and alternative bands. Like I was talking to someone recently, and it used to be sort of a localized thing. Now it's like people send him brilliant music from, seems to be all over the world. And that there, I suppose, for people out there listening to a show like that, or people that have music of their own, you definitely want to be getting your music to people like that, and because and also I know that you're playing on Six Music as well, and you know there's support like for yourself, because you've built them networks now, Liam, that I suppose the bigger radio stations as such are starting to play your artists. You know, the likes of, you know, they're both still like on the role of independence, is that right? And do you want to speak about that there for people out there, that it's not an easy route to take? Okay, and we can smile all we want, good people, and wave on there, and we can do hello and blow kisses and all, but it's a place where I suppose artists want to be, but also it's a place where you want to arrive maybe at a really good publishing deal, and you know, and own your own rights and all these things. So you want to tell people a wee bit about running, because I know for people out there, if you want to get Row, you just go MusicBlue.com. Liam has set that up, and it brings you right in and all your music and all that there. So do you want to explain a bit, Liam, about that?
Yeah, I mean you can chat a bit about what's like the importance of it from the artist side, but I mean the thing about being independent is it's difficult, but it's rewarding. And also, it's not necessarily something like I think people know us as being super independent, but it's not necessarily something that's going to exist forever. It's trying to make it work can be a bit of a slog, but it's just about aligning yourself with the right people and using the right services, and knowing when to and how to apply for the right funding. So whenever you do need a little bit of an injection of cash, you can go to somebody like the Arts Council or Help Musicians or PRS Foundation and get that little bit of money and get that little bit of help. But it's just about at the start of your career, it's just about holding as many cards as you can. You know, so we're doing this about 4 or 5 years now, and you own all of your own publishing. We own all of the rights to the masters of all of the songs, and so whenever the time will come to do a publishing deal or to do a record deal, we're in a stronger position now because we've built everything. We don't owe anybody anything at all.
Yeah,
you know,
there's no back debt. There's no back debt.
So we've done like I mean, I'm not going to go and sit here and list off all the achievements that we've done, but like all like
I know, here,
stuff, but like supporting
about
Snow
it, man.
Patrol and playing at Glastonbury and getting played on Radio
You've
1.
just stole all my last questions.
You can
good.
back it up.
I was joking.
But all that stuff is stuff that we did.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we're not feeling like we owe a record label something for them getting us the opportunity, or we don't act like literally owe them anything because you know, we're in debt as to, you know, this, that, and the other. So I think it's definitely been important to us on that aspect of it, and also in the last couple of years, I think it's just much easier to do. You know, the fact that all of your marketing can be done through social media, the fact that there's so many good distributors out there who'll get your music onto the likes of Spotify and Apple Music and help you get them onto the playlists. Yeah. It's easier to do now than it was a long time ago. I think people are a bit savvier about how to do it.
They're not scared anymore, Liam.
I don't think there's any reason to be. But I mean, in terms of like, I mean, you can speak better to the importance of it as an artist. Like,
yeah, like the most important thing that comes from being independent for me anyway is creative control. You know, you get to choose what songs you put out, what you don't want to put out. And there's been horror stories. There's even been one recently about Ray. Have you heard about that? So she was an artist on some label and went through album after album pitching maybe 6 or 7 albums to them, and they wouldn't put anything out. And she was in this nightmare situation where she had this massive bank of music that she couldn't put out because somebody upstairs was saying, no, it's not happening. And I think being independent lets you sidetrack that, lets you completely be
get
in
out
control.
of jail card.
Yeah,
because it does sound a bit like that you were speaking about, that it's just a total entrapment. And there's many artists that has happened over the years, I'd imagine, and forced Jamur and all these fancy terms that I'll give a ticket away and take it back and give it back, and the boiled eggs nearly boiled, but I'll take it back and take it, you know, Liam, and it goes on and on and on and on.
Because I mean, she thinks she sent that to me when she was like 17 or something.
Yeah,
you know, she's in her 20s now. I mean, we had it as well. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but like way back at the start, we got some like an email with like a really basic offer from some indie in America who was owned by a bigger. And it was all, hey, I really love the music. We'd love to, like, you know, sign us for an EP of songs that we'll choose. I think that was my first massive red flag of that kind of stuff. I was like, whoa, no way am I gonna allow somebody else to choose what songs go on the EP and then what ones go on the single. I was like, no, why would you get yourself into the debt?
Yeah,
you know.
And what like so say like I had a magic wand now, right? And I was like freaking Alfie, amen, you know, and whatever label will not mention them because there only is 4 big ones, and the whole world knows who they are. And why should I waste breath and tell the world who they are unless ad break? Let's talk record labels.
People can Google,
and people can Google out there, you know. And but if I was and I had this magic freaking wand and it just went bing, it just arrived like that there, just on the table now. As you first, Roshan or Ro, what would your reaction be? And then I'll go to you, Liam. You know, so it just lands, right?
And is this on one of the majors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So one of the majors land, cool one like Atlantic say.
Yeah.
But we'll edit that out. Or Universal. We don't want to put them down.
I think it completely depends on what the deal is. You know, it could be the biggest label in the world, and if it's a horrible deal, then you shouldn't sign it because it means that you're giving up so much and not getting a lot back. Yeah. So it's, for me, it's not about that. It's not about having the big flashy label with stacks of money behind you. I think it's definitely just about working with the right people. And we've always said this, like, whenever we started working together, we wanted a team of people that we could trust and people that you could have a pint with, and you know, like
family affair.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and so far I think we've achieved that. We have this really, really close knit team of people that work really well together and would have each other's backs,
protect each other.
So it could be like, I mean, if it's a good deal, definitely. I'm not against labels, you know.
Did you shout out the name Bella Union there?
I just think that, like, there's so many pros and cons to being independent, but there's also so many pros and cons to being with a label, you know. It's completely up to your preference and where you want to be and where you are at the minute in your career. So Yeah.
So
I mean, my view on the major thing is that the majors, because they have so much more money, are so much more likely to gamble on something, which can be both a good and a bad thing. You know, because if they gamble on you, and for whatever reason you're not hitting whatever arbitrary benchmark numbers that they've decided that they want you to hit in order to, you know, make your money back, and then it's all totally their prerogative to turn around and go, no, we're just not doing this anymore. And and I don't blame them for that. But they have the money to be able to do that. So that, and then coupled with the people thing that Ro was saying, like, I mean, if you sign a deal with Warner or Universal, it's going to be some person in A&R who might not be there in a year's time. And that's what happens. Like all these terrible deals that you hear people sign, usually what happens is they get signed by an A&R who moves to a different company.
Big Ron signed you today.
Yeah,
and he's gone
and the rest of the team are like, oh, I don't really care about this. You know, yeah, it's good and whatever, but like the guy who really cared about it's gone. So like with the smaller indie labels, usually what you have is the person that is A&R might be the person that runs the label or who totally owns the label. Yeah. And so if they fall in love with what you're doing and also are able to kind of put a bit of money into it, then you can negotiate yourself a better deal and know that, like you said, you're bringing somebody onto your team who you can trust and isn't going to, you know, off to one of the bigger labels at the first time they get a chance.
There is a few independent labels out there, as you know, that have been good to acts and they've been there since maybe let's say the early 80s, 90s, and they're still respectable. And there's I suppose the right act or the right label at the right time, it'll be a case of that for your sales then, if that's what you're saying.
And that's also true of like I'm not knocking major labels, you know, because like I mean there are certain acts out there who belong on a major label, you know, and so you know are going to be commercially successful enough that they need that big massive machine behind them. And I think that people coming through the music industry think that they are the next that person and that they need that big machine, but like 90% of them don't.
You know?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what we should be saying out there to the good people is that now we're getting back out to festivals and events. For people out there, you know, just for you that's got the experience now of timeline and stuff and all that there, have you advice for people that got there? Because to me, could I just say on my behalf, it costs a lot of money to record. And it costs a lot of money to record right, and it costs a lot of money to get it, the packaging and get it out there, even though you just spontaneously, because I don't know if you felt this, the both ends on lockdown, it was as if everybody had to put something out like straight away, and there was no, you know, I've sat in this album for 2 years, like, well, sit in our while, you know what I mean? And so what's your thinking on that, you know?
I mean, I could really easily, as Ro probably knows, like I could spend like 2 hours just chatting about this nonstop. But I think the main thing is just to have some patience. And I think that artists, whenever they have spent money recording an album or they have an EP or a couple of singles or whatever it is, because they've spent the money and because they've worked really, really hard and because, you know, it's, you know, between writing and recording it, that's a really intensive period of time. I think it's easy after all of that to go, oh, just get it out. I'm really excited to get it out into the world. But it's more difficult to stop that instinct and go, right, let's take a bit of time and let's plan it out. I think that was probably the thing I was saying to you about the thing, and I see it a lot in Derry and Northern Ireland, where first of all,
just tell people out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I think that like, recording an album is a really big deal.
It is.
Generally your first release should never be an album, because it's, you know, maybe people will pick up on 1 or 2 songs, but then there's 8 or 9 people that people aren't never going to hear, unless maybe you'll get your 10-20 hardcore fans that will go and hear it, you know. And so
it's not enough, like it's not enough,
and like people have their opinions on the music industry being a singles driven market now, and you know, you can agree or disagree with that, but it is what it is, you know. And singles are basically a way to build your fan base, and you need a fan base to buy your album, and the more people buy your album, the more money you're going to make, and then you can sink into the next project. And it's kind of really just basic math when you think about it that way. So you need the fan base to buy the stuff to keep going. So use
and
singles.
You know what, when you build a certain few thousand people, you could soon you know, you can soon generate, you know, yourself right,
so
up
that's
there.
The point of singles. So use singles to build your fan base, and then whenever you have the fan base, give them the album, sell them the album, and then rinse and repeat. That's essentially that's the process. But so many people record albums and just put them out without any sort of warning. You know, it's like, oh, you know that I play a bit of music. Oh, my album's coming out tomorrow. That's not, you know, that's not giving it enough of a chance for any sort of success. And generally, what happens is within about a month of an album coming out, unless you're doing some crazy touring, that's like the peak of the release.
Yeah.
And people stop caring after that.
Yeah.
So you're kind of building to that.
Yeah.
And so if you
it's
don't
the same
tell
thing
you,
for festivals, you're always because I'm aware of this. There's certain acts they would love to play your festival, but they can't because of nothing coming out.
Yeah.
And they're solid by that. They've got the agent. Everything seems to move like that.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I mean, this year and last year to a certain extent, notwithstanding, like, the summer is a terrible time to release something because, like, all the music industry press and all are talking about festivals. So the thing to do is, like, maybe release.
Well, they're having jollies at the festivals.
Yeah. So the thing to do is to release in, like, say October, and then do all of your festivals promoting the fact that the album is coming out. Or release it in April and then go do the festivals as hey, my album's out and here's the latest single and you can buy it online and all this. So like everything, like every part of it has to like tie into each other. You can't put out an album, then not do anything for a month and then do 3 shows in Holland. Everything has to be like planned and connected. And like even if you only spend a couple of hours figuring out a really basic plan, that's still better than no plan, which is like the cardinal sin of releasing music. And so many bands in Northern Ireland fall into that trap.
And is that something then that you think that maybe links into the music course you're doing at the minute through Rock School?
This is great.
So I wanted to bring that up, and I suppose I'm double barreling both of you. You all right over there? Roisin, you all right with it? Are you all right over it? I just want to see a wee smile there. So hold on. We'll have this is I love doing this ad break. So this is Tierney, your first ad break. So we have an ad break here for Liam Craig, a lecturer extraordinaire, is going to explain about the first music industry course ever in Northern Ireland and in Ireland, in the Ulster, in ever, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So Liam, I read about this and I thought, brilliant, and you'd be the man to lead it. So tell the people out there about the course. It's the first, it's through Rock School.
Yeah.
So the ad break, tell us the crack, Liam.
So it's been accredited by Rock School, who some people might have heard of for doing like guitar, drums, bass qualifications. It's being ran through the Northwest Regional College in Derry. It's an online part-time course, which is like you said, the first music industry qualification in Northern Ireland. There's been courses before that you could be invited to, or that if you're part of a select group of people who was in the know, you could maybe attend.
Then you got to wait to this exclusive hotel, and you sat all weekend and talked the industry talk.
But this one, anybody can sign up to.
Brilliant.
Anybody can attend, and it's basically the basics of like royalties, copyrights, how to get your music online, how to promote your music, how to set it up, like the gist of touring, how to manage your money, where money comes from, all that really basic stuff that I think is lacking. It's online, it's part-time, it'll be Monday evenings, 6 to 9. Starts in the middle of September, and if you go to the tech website, which is nwrc.ac.uk, then you can get on in there and you can apply for the course.
Because that's really good. You've done really good there. That was a pitch and a half there. Roisin, your album pitch is coming now. The next ad break. When you hear me, just get ready. All right, it's not puppy purr, and just get in there. So for that there, Liam. Fair play to you for taking it on. That's really good. And as I say, because you are now one of the new age managers in Northern Ireland, and there's a few other dudes like yourself and dudettes, and like Charlene is managing, and Hammy was talking managing, and this man from Newry, Declan Legg as well. Declan's managing, so that's a great thing. Roisin, from years ago, it was very hard for people to get managers as such. Usually it was mammies and daddies. I'm a dad, you better pay or I'll knock you out. Like I used to see up at the festival, mommy's landing on, you look after him and all that, going, what the hell? I can't even look after myself. Never mind look after your 2 teenage sons and their 2 girlfriends, but and all the way from Donegal. So the likes of that course is really, really important because things are changing in Northern Ireland, aren't they? And, for young artists like yourself, Ro, it's really good because I suppose if you were still in Derry now and you're beating out your songs and you're kind of trying to get on and trying to get on, but there's no sort of connections to the industry. You've met a good person there. Liam will keep you right. like we were speaking earlier on about, the young generation now missing out on like gigs, that 16-year-old to 18-year-old, not transcending, as the saying goes. And I'm not saying people are drinking at that age or falling over at that age, but they've missed that. And you spoke, we were chatting over a cup of coffee or tea earlier on, and you spoke about being in Bennigan's very young, playing, and like, I want to speak a bit about that, because it lets people know that, sometimes, because I know we had a couple of young artists here, they're older artists now, but I was kind of getting them on gigs, and they would have been down the local pubs and stuff and playing and getting experience. Do you, just for young people out there that want to get experience, and want to play and perform, as someone that has done it from that young age, do you want to tell a wee bit of the timeline about how that all happened for you?
So I started at the Nerve Centre, started doing all the projects there, and then realised that I wanted to write and realised that I wanted to perform. So I ended up going out, I think it might have been just as the Peace Bridge had opened, but started busking there at the end of the bridge. And shortly after that, it was actually Jilly St. John.
Yeah, Jilly,
bumped into me. I was busking somewhere, and she said about this Battle of the Bands she had on in Masons.
Deadly.
And said, you should totally go in for it, you're really, really good. So I ended up going and doing that, and I think I won the kind of songwriter bit of it.
Stuff.
That's deadly.
And
how old are we, man?
Sell the rights to this.
I tell you.
Yeah, so after that
Liam, are you crying there? Stop that crying now. Go ahead, sorry.
After that, I ended up, it gave me the confidence to start going to open mic nights. So, or it was the introducing nights, in Bennigan's. They put me on for one of them, and then started going to the open mic nights. And that's really just how I started to perform, was getting out there, even though I was young and probably not meant to be there.
But that's the best time. I know. I was kind of caught up in that myself, but but see what you're saying there. It's sort of, I suppose, it's very important for young people that are your fans, and young people are maybe listening to this, that it's all right to go out and sing a song in a wee concert hall. Do you know what I mean? And then go over and sing for real at somewhere else. Because I think it's all experience, and I suppose an important thing to say there is you were learning about the microphones, you were learning about standing back, you were learning about the DI boxes, all the stuff, as you know, that people trip over and what's up for, and so, but they're all needed. And I suppose for you going through that there, and now Liam knows that there, I think he's going to write a production song about that wee story there. And but coming to your good self, the likes of coming up now, for the likes of, have you, because I know that you can't, there's big things happening in the next few weeks, but we can't really say much about it. But you've got a new single coming out, Liam. Do you want it, for people out there that maybe haven't, are aware of the single coming out, that it's going to come out in a couple of weeks?
You did.
And I did.
You did.
Well, the single's actually already out.
Yeah, but it's got good play and it's been picked up.
It's been getting really good play. And then we got told last week or the week before that it's going to be introducing track of the week on BBC Radio 1.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank
Do you know
you.
what I should just say on behalf of that? The last time I was, not the last time, I was in a podcast on here one time, and it was Gemma Bradley.
Yeah.
And literally, it's a true story. Literally, Gemma was coming on to do a podcast, and she says, just got a job at Radio 1. And that's a true story. And I was like, what the? And I says, what? And so then it threw me all off, as things do. And so I said, we were kind of half celebrating, and then we're going, but we can't say anything. We'll sort it all out in the end, So I suppose that for people out there, that's a great, it's a great platform to get your tune on, and it's Radio 1 introducing UK wide. It's not just.
So it gets played on. Is it every single Radio 1 show
for a week?
Every show
on the playlist. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
And we don't want to be letting out the secret formula to how that happened. That if anybody wants to find out that from you or Liam, it'll cost $5,000.
The one thing I would say about it, though, is it's a really, really good example of how long it takes to get radio working, because it always takes that long. It takes a couple of months. So the song came out in June, and it's going to be on the Radio 1 playlist in September.
Yeah.
You know, so that's if you're trying to make radio happen, it takes a while.
So just for people out there listening, and I don't know if it's the same format, I have a habit of jumping in and out of stations, but sometimes I find that Six Music will play a song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it could be you'll hear another presenter apologising for playing it because Liam's played it and then I'm playing it, and then you'll hear somebody apologising and send it back to Radio 2, and then it's going to be sent on to Radio 1. So that's a completely different way, Liam. For the likes of listening to tunes. But for the likes of yourselves, I know I grew up radio and all, but how important is radio for the likes of you, Roisin, now, and you, Liam? Is it still the same? Has it still got the power it has?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like I still get the buzz whenever one of my songs gets played on the radio for the first time on somewhere it hasn't been before.
Have you been stopped in the street? Here, heard your song on the radio.
Yeah, like people tweet you and come up to you, and like family members and all are really, really excited saying, I heard you on the radio last night.
So proud. That's brilliant.
It's amazing. But like, especially with the BBC, the one thing I would say for any artists is to put your songs onto the BBC uploader.
Yeah.
It's really important, and BBC Ulster and BBC Foyle are really, really good at going through the songs and playing new artists that they think suit the shows.
That's brilliant.
And like even the Glastonbury thing came through us uploading one of my songs to the BBC uploader, went across the line, and then ended up getting a slot at the BBC Introducing Stage at Glastonbury.
How deadly is that? I actually was a tour manager for a band to go over there, the Woodburn and Savages. I don't know how I got that job. They looked after me big time. And but I noticed that, I don't know if it's the same yourself, Roisin, that you land on that stage and you're thinking, is anybody going to come in? What is crack here? Because it's kind of a drag everybody in sort of thing. But they do come in.
Yeah, 100%.
And
you got a great crowd.
Yeah.
And what was it like then, being there for someone so young? And it's amazing, the whole their whole setup, the sound, the monitor guys and all, everything was done very pro.
It's pro, yeah.
And you have to be pro when you're getting on that. I'm sure Liam done that solid for you. But what was your experience like there? And for new fans and such a big occasion, and such a big cultural festival. Do you know what I mean?
It was crazy. It was my first proper festival as well, even being there and playing at it. So it was just... Did
you both travel over together? Or
Yeah.
We made a weekend of it. We have free tickets to Glasgow for the weekend.
Yeah.
So it was so good. Like it was mad getting up on a stage, not knowing if anybody was going to show up because nobody had heard of you before,
But they had. You see, the thing I felt about that stage is there's so many different... I know there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, but there's certain people they're honing into certain things. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know what I mean by that, Liam? And you can't see everybody. But like there've been, I know the Woodburn had started off triple, and then like yourself, probably just people come in and in and in. Yeah. But I think I suppose like anything, for shows like that, as Liam you spoke about earlier on, friend, it's that sort of how do we put this together straight after that to keep that energy, that buzz, going, and Glastonbury, great grandfather of all, but you played just last week, and we're on here today, Stendhal, which, and I'm aware you played the Stendhal Festival, was up, the small one, and then the bigger one, which is last week. And so what was that like being back? And just for people out there, because there's this thing now after COVID about, will I go out or will I stay in, or will I go over and do that, or will I do that? Well, but I felt there's a lot of people were there to have a good time, and it was all well run, and John and Ross and all the guys ran it well, and they have a good team of people. Yeah. So what was the experience for you to be back in that arena? Like you went from the Godfathers, like starting over there, like you went from fucking Ferrari down onto Mini Metro. So how was that for you?
It was unbelievable. Like Stendhal will always have a special place in my heart, just because I've basically grown up through playing music, playing at that festival as well through the years.
You've learned your craft.
100%. And to be back playing on the main stage is just, it's surreal to be doing that and having. But that's
a sign of your progression.
Yeah, definitely.
And so don't be ever scared of that. That's what happened there, because you can, if you go to any festival, if you were to go back to Glastonbury, for instance, you might be in a certain tent way over. And then it's not unknown that bands have went from them tents, and there's a lot of big bands I could mention that started introducing.
Yeah.
So there's too many to name. But if you take the likes of the experience of being at Glastonbury and then being at Stendhal, that's going back to what we were chatting about earlier on. That sort of mannerisms to appear, the mannerisms to play, the mannerisms to clear up, the mannerisms to arrive in time, the mannerisms to arrive with the right instruments. You know, no sense landing a tubolo when you're a guitar player. You know, what is that about? Do you know what I mean? Or I'm a drummer, but I'll arrive with 42 keyboards, you know. But so the likes of, for any young people out there, you know, maybe having that experience, do you want to say a wee bit about, I know this, I don't want to put in the spot for this, but how do you prep for something like that? You know, like, so I know how the boys prep for it, and how do you prep? Do you kind of, before you go on, don't talk to me, Liam. Liam,
It's like that all the time.
don't talk to me now, lad, because I am Roll the Ninja. I've got 14 black belts, 2 reds, a yellow, a green, a blue, a black, and 14 purple. And so how do you prep for a gig? Now, the video one is one thing, so maybe, you know, how do you prep for festivals and going about to go on them?
I still get nervous. I don't think I'll ever not be nervous, but I read something recently about reframing it as excitement, and I've been trying to do that a lot more, because I think that's what it really is. It's just being really excited to get on stage.
Adrenaline. It's switching adrenaline to positivity, isn't it?
Yeah. So before I go on stage, like I will get quiet. Like I kind of get in my head a lot. It was more so when I was playing on my own, because I had so much stuff to do on stage.
You were thinking about everything before you actually loved the gig before you went on. Is that all right to say? Every note, every word. Yeah, I understand
I literally write down each pad on the drum pad and like try and visualize it in my head, which one to hit when. Like that was whenever I was starting out with it. Like I was really, really nervous going on and having so much stuff to do. But see, with the band, it feels like a lot more chill, just because everybody's having the crack before you go on stage, and then you're just on and you're having crack on stage.
Yeah. So
you know?
So what you're saying is the band formula has taken away that sort of, you know, 2 gigs in one night, if you know what I mean by that. So you're prepping it in your head. You have every word, you have every, you know, and because I know from seeing you at the start, and then because I remember, it could be, I can't remember, it was Waldorf and Cannon's album release up in one time. Did you support it or not?
Woodburn and Savage's album launch. You supported.
Isn't that right? Woodburn Savage, sorry. And so like from there to where you are now, and it shows that for people out there that want to, like you, going back to earlier on, you're a multi-instrumentalist, so you've got all these sounds going on in your head. So I suppose to transport them in, and you've got the man there now to transport them in, if that's all right. He's got the car to drive them in. But for the likes of yourself, your first album came out. So do you want to tell people about, like, I know that for yourself, MusicBlue.com is set up. Did you set that up, Liam?
No, it was, who told me about MusicBlue? MusicBlue is just this amazing website that allows you to have a website and to sell all your stuff,
so
but without having to know anything about how websites work.
Right. No, because I wanted to ask about that there, because I thought, you know, I didn't look too much into it, and I wanted just for the people out there. So basically, it's a window. Yeah. And the big pair of dudes behind you pushing everything out.
Yep. So
people see your window. And that's a really good thing. Because for people out there, it's just, if you're checking, if you want any row stuff, it's MusicBlue.com, and you just hit in your good self. Is that right?
Or if you go to rowofficial.com, it'll redirect you. It's all very...
No, because here, we work with a group called T-Mail. And they don't need me advertising them, but they're you know, they're sort of eco clothes, and they're more expensive, but you see everything that they do and where the factory is and who works there. It's 2 guys started in the shed, and so we go through them, and it's like it's the same thing. It's like they'll just go up, and we have it on our own website now, but their page is like our window as such, and it looks as if it's us, and it looks cool, and for people out there it is us, and for people out there it is Rose. And so you know, and but your first album came out was a couple of years ago, or that right?
EP.
The first EP was Girls. Single.
The first single would have been Cheek Boy, wouldn't it? Of the new.
Figure Death.
Yeah, Figure Death.
Yeah.
And that EP was You Call It Art. And then,
I remember that.
yeah, and then the second one was...
Down Days. Am I releasing singles here on behalf of you that hasn't even been released?
No, they've all been released. Yeah.
And Patient Thinking.
Yeah, Wasted Patient Thinking as well. Yeah.
And so that's going what Liam says there about, you know, releasing so many singles before you released your album. And so when you released your album, Things We Don't Talk About Can Be Good. Isn't that right? Yeah. And it's at the MusicBlue. So we'll have an ad break for Ro here. Ready? You're going to have to advertise this. You know, I want you to talk every single and the album, right? So ad break for Ro's new album. For all you new fans out there, rushing, take it away.
Well, Things We Don't Talk About came out last year. It's kind of a farewell to that kind of sound for me. So it's Room to Breathe is on it, and that's still one of my favourite songs just because it wasn't supposed to come out as a single until lockdown happened and it felt like the right time to release it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can get that on my MusicBlue.
Brilliant.
Check it out. Yeah.
You know, could I just say, you know, you've got a great camaraderie between the two of you, which is a really good thing. I think there's a lot of honesty in what you're both doing. And so for future plans, what's the kind of future plans for Ro and Liam? And I know that this Radio 1 sort of playlist, that's definitely going to bring new ears and new eyes too, which is an amazing thing, because I'm a great believer still in the power of radio, and maybe the royalty's not as big as used to be, but hey, you know, the old guard won't always be about you know, can I just say that without mentioning any top 4 names, we'll give initials, won't we? But and you know, for the likes of for people out there, just you mentioned it there, I always like to bring it up, you know, for young artists and the copyright. You know, because, you know, people speak to me, young ones at times. Are you a member of PRS and MRO or just PRS?
Right now I'm a member of PRS, but we're working to change that to both. So,
yeah. Because I do know artists are both, and one takes Ireland and one takes the UK and Europe.
So because you're based in Ireland, because we're based on the island of Ireland, and a lot of artists get so much radio play down south, their PRS will collect the royalties for the radio play down south, but there's an import fee essentially on it because it's technically abroad. So you can set up so the PRS collects all your royalties for the UK, and then IMRO collects all your royalties for Ireland and the rest of the world, which means you get a little bit more, especially if you're getting a lot of Irish radio play, which we would.
Well, that's really good, because that's something that that's definitely been going on these last few years. And what's your thoughts on you know, because I know you've got good support from the people, like, you know, you mentioned Gemma Bradley and BBC Introducing and Stephen McCauley and people like that. What you're thinking? Because I know many years ago I went down. There was a conference down in it was Imro. We're howling it. It was in Dublin, Liam, and some great. All the songwriters of the day, all different genres and styles of music in Ireland that had been successful were in the room. And the one thing that came up was that they wanted at that time, the question I suppose was, why is there not more, I don't like to do it new music, but more localised, generated music, if that's all right to say, not played on mainstream radio and radio in general. And I think it came up, I could be wrong, I think Canada led the way at 60% was their own artists.
Yeah.
That's really strong. Like,
isn't it Canada has the quota though? I'm pretty sure
maybe,
Canada is one of the countries that has a quota of a certain percentage of all radio play has to be Canadian artists.
So that's real interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to just, before we be backing down and all, what's your views on that there for the likes of, maybe you mightn't be, but Liam, for you, what's your thinking? Because I know that it's changing. It is.
I think you're concluding, because you've had so much support from down south. Like.
Yeah, like I think that a lot of radio stations still think that they need to play the top 40 to get people to listen, but there's so much incredible music coming out of Ireland and Northern Ireland, so I don't see why local music can't be the majority of what's played on radio. And there's a massive thing at the minute because there's disparity between female and male acts as well, because
do you want to speak a bit about that?
So at the minute, there was a report released a few months ago about the lack of female representation within radio. And it's crazy.
As in working within the radio stations, or as in
being played, yeah. So the majority of acts being played on the radio stations are male. And there's a lot of stupid arguments as to why that is.
Oh, don't speak away. Tell what you feel. Say it like you feel, you know what I mean? That's the thing about what we're on here. Nothing's not able to...
Yeah, like, the radios think that they have to play male artists to get an audience, because that's what people are listening to. But the flip side of that is if they played more female artists, they get a different audience. They get more... Yeah. Like, it'd be more varied, and it should be. And I don't see why I don't see why there should be this disparity whenever there's so many incredible non-binary and woman artists coming out of here that deserve the chance to be played on radio. And I don't see why there is another block for them to go through to be able to be played on radio.
Yeah, so. Because what you've just said there is like there's individuals want to identify themselves a certain way, and the systems are set up at the minute that maybe don't use discriminate. Maybe is that the right way to say it, or maybe not as open. But is that where independent stations come into play, and do they push more, or because I know like even at the minute there's Charlotte Dryden running the Woman of the World Festival, and you know, I'm sure you've done gigs like that, and Lindsay from the New Pagans was speaking about and because good people like yourself are going to be the voice of that in the future. So what I would say is say it like it is, and you know, because but if people like you're picking up on it there, so it's something that's annoying you. Yeah.
No, 100%. Like,
so, like, how do you think then? Does it need? I don't want to say a pile of people at Stormont hitting fucking 10 buckets. It's fucking useless. But you know, strategically wise, is it changing a wee bit? You think, or is it just a bluff? You know, sometimes you see things going like, oh, it's all changed. Look, Liam. Oh, look, there's the posters. A poster boy, poster girl. Yeah, I am. I'm identified as poster boy. You know, or poster girl. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it just disappears. Yeah. The poster and the good news and oh, did you hear such and such? Did you hear the poster? Did you hear this? Did you hear that? It's all sort of gone. Yeah. So, what do you think needs to happen? Or maybe there is groups out there now.
Like there's there's definitely a lot of that, of people saying that they're going to change and then not doing it. Especially when it comes to radio and festivals. Even with the festival lineups is another thing I won't go into, but there are groups, especially in Ireland. There's even a group I'm part of, Irish Women in Harmony, who stand for female representation within the music industry, because it is a big problem and people don't see it that way. They just think that that's the industry and that's how it should be, and you know, it doesn't need changed, but the change needs to come from within the industry for it to be meaningful and for it to be long lasting. And I think people need to just man up and be the first people to make the change and say, okay, we're gonna make it important to play female artists on radio, and we're going to make it important for female representation to be 50-50 on a lineup, you know? So
and you feel in the radio too should be or the radio as well, it's not saying radio too, but the radio as well should be 50-50.
I think there's enough incredible talent coming out of here that there shouldn't be a lack of female representation, you know? I think there's more than enough, and I don't think that should be an argument for people not to play women. Yeah,
well, I'm aware of certain festivals out there that over a period of time they may have played complete male, you know, layouts, and that's could be pretty up to date here, right? Yeah. Maybe being careful, but so we'll put that into one arena there. How would you then approach maybe do we need someone to come out and run a festival of just all female and put the fingers up to them and say, here, look at this, and we sell this many tickets? No, but I'm just, you know,
there has
like
been.
Well, then it takes maybe artists like yourself to, you know, to maybe, you know, as you go on, you'll get more success, and as you go on, your voice will get stronger, if that makes sense. And lots of arenas, and some you might need to be careful of what you say, and others just fucking say it like it is. But the thing is, for a build up from now, and like what you've said here, because young people listening out there, they might know this. Because I'm making this up. They're just seeing the Blue Glass Band and Frame Band, and I'm going to see them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they've just because Liam told me to go. He's my big brother. He says, look, brilliant. So I'm away.
Yeah.
But the same thing, I suppose, the young days when I was growing up, and you're right, there were certain bands, and even the classic rock bands, even maybe at Heart, that were led by female singers, a great family band. But you didn't see, you know, you had Stevie Nicks, people like that there leading the way, you know what I mean, and Lindsay Buchan and Fleetwood Mac, and you know, but it was still not total female. But how do you think then, from here on in, tell the people out there and the radio stations what you think they need to do, because it's maybe important, Liam, that it says, you know, from an artist's point of view, I could say it, I've been chanting it for years, but this is your moment to say to what's out there, you know? They
need to do the research, I think, is the main thing, to make sure that what they're playing is 50-50, is completely equal
and
across
gender
all
aligned
boards.
And all, everything should be right,
just I think it's ignorance to play all male acts or to book all male acts, knowing that there's female artists out there that deserve a shot, you know. So I think,
are you saying to promoters out there that, so devil's advocate here, I'm saying I've got the Glasses Band that's going to sell out, and Liam and this, you know, so I'm kind of in there, and so I suppose it's what I need to do is well, maybe in a situation like that, maybe what we're saying is because it was in that world, you know, people could say, oh, well, that's the only bands came in front of me then, right? I know, right? So, but that's not the case now, right? I understand that, right? So I'm only going back years and years ago, there maybe wasn't as many, you know, bands, even rock band, any type of, you know, and then you had, I suppose, just going through years, the put together bands, I'm not even call them whatever we call them. Do you know the ones I mean? Ooh girl, you know them bands, Liam. You know, remember me and you were going to start one, but we didn't want to. You said
that was one of the songs.
You said my hair was too long and I need to dye my hair and all. I don't want to do that. And but so for people out there, then, do you think then maybe festival organisers need to bring a female entity into that arena and be part of their sort of booking standard? Because I am sure, I don't want to name them again, but there's, I'll just say 3 major bookers out there. I mean, 3 major, and they're out there, okay, and they're sitting and they're going, we run this and it's 50,000 people, we run this and it's 20, we run that, it's 10, we run that there, it's 15. Do you know where I'm going here, right? And so there is independent festivals out there in the UK now. How do you think they're doing at the minute?
I have very strong opinions on how the festivals are going at the minute. It's ridiculous how many of them don't take into consideration female representation on the lineups. But what I will say is that it is changing, but it's changing slowly. There's definitely progress being made, but it has to be across the board. It has to be every festival, you know. I don't think it's acceptable in this day and age to have a lineup that's all guys, all dudes, you know, because then you're just alienating half of the musicians that want to play festivals and half of your audience. Like,
so
who wants to come and see a bunch of dudes play on stage?
And then as you're saying, that just brings 100 sweaty dudes to the front. It's not really, and you know.
I also don't think that the thing about this band can sell however many tickets, I don't think that's a thing anymore. Because I mean, like you tell me, right, so like band A, who's all dudes, has 4 million hits on Spotify. You tell me you can't go find an equally good popular female act that has the same sort of numbers and will have the same sort of pull, because I could if you give me half an hour. You know,
and I suppose in a way what you're not asking for is just a an all duet festival.
Yeah.
You know, you're still saying we can mix, we can, I suppose, mix, mingle, and play, and put across our artistic expression together.
It's about inclusion, just.
And I don't think, you know, I don't even think it's the artist's fault. You know, I don't think, you know, the artists are just out there creating content and creating what they need to do to, like you guys, to keep going.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something to explore sometime, maybe again, come down and chat all about that and in a podcast down the line. And maybe a few years' time, you'll come back and be able to tell me, Ro, that it's all good in the garden, or Paddy, there's certain places really doing it good. I mean, to me, there's festivals out there now, the policies for, you know, the whole green environmental thing, the policies to keep people safe, the policies, you know, for the safety of the stages, as you know, the safety of the equipment, policies for the safety of the artists coming in, and all these things. Well, then maybe there needs to be a policy written in that festivals have to kind of look at least start off with 30% and then work your way up. You know, maybe they'll come back and go, we can't do this because we're a certain type. And if that's the case, well then, that's the case. There's nothing you can do about it. But I can't see what that type is.
No, not anymore.
Do you know what I mean? And you mentioned there all the different backgrounds of individuals and their identity and all that. You know, so I suppose for people out there, you're kind of explaining, Roisin, that to be identified a certain way is hard enough. Never mind trying to fucking get on X, Y, or Z, you know. So for people out there, maybe it's time that I don't know if there's a stupid thing to say, but maybe some kind of artist's alignment sort of thing, you know, where you're a female artist and you get in touch with somebody and say, you played at Liam Fest, how did you go about that? And then all of a sudden there's maybe more entries coming in from that network of people, you know.
Well, that's a little bit what you're saying with the...
Yeah, Irish Women in Harmony have been incredible for that. It started last year where we did a charity single for domestic abuse.
Was that online?
Charity. Yeah.
What was that song again?
Dreams, the Cranberries. Yeah, so it went down really well. Yeah.
Give us a wee line then. Well, they'll probably sue us.
But it was...
And there was some big hitters on there, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it didn't just end there. Like, we're still creating opportunities for each other. We're still in a WhatsApp group chatting to each other, making...
Do you want to tell people out there how that came about? Just, you know, for people that aren't sure, you know.
Yeah, it came about through Ruth Ann. So she is a writer and artist and incredible at what she does. She's a producer as well. So she kind of put everybody together alongside a team of female industry reps, you know, for promotion and marketing and to be able to make this legit thing. So since then, it's been really, really great to have people like that to connect with.
That'd be an amazing concert if you all got together.
Yeah, I know.
Why
We're
you just do a Woman in Harmony festival?
I know, yeah.
I know a boy might be able to help you. He's sitting beside you. But that's, and I mean, I suppose for why I'm bringing this up is because there's young people out there that might be artists and they might feel as if they can't get gigs, and they might feel that they want to identify a certain way. And I think for what you've said there has been brilliant, that nobody should feel alone.
Yeah.
And that there's always people to speak to. And I think that listening to the two yous, like a lot of artists this last while have seemed to suffered a lot of mental health issues, and you have seemed to keep it together as a unit, and you're back out again, which is good. And I think...
I mean, we've both fallen apart at least once in the last year, but we've sort of picked each other back up again.
Well, but that's good, because that's life. I mean, nothing's ever always roses growing. You know, that even the most beautiful rose has thorns in it. It'll prick you. You notice that?
Yeah.
You know, you want to get close to it and smell it and fucking cut you to pieces. You know what I mean? So there's life. That's life, isn't it? But for people out there, we've got the Radio 1 thing coming up. And if you have any other sort of plans, I know the summer... I want to be careful in Irish summers, but is there any other wee gigs coming up, or any plans? Or I know that probably you'd have been a lot of southern gigs, but they're all gone, and a lot of UK gigs. Look, you spoke about gigs to do in the UK, which is brilliant that you're over there now.
Yeah.
But a lot of them cancelled. Some of them have started up again, but that's something I suppose I will watch out for. Something now that you've just said there about the percentage of male and females. I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And I'm easy speaking about it because I think I tried the best and that we could for artists who were about at the time to play.
Yeah.
And I think that I suppose there is other festivals trying the same. And but I suppose it goes down to programming, doesn't it? And Liam, and it does in a sense of who's programming, what it's for, and who's the clientele. But I think the interesting bit on it to re-speak on is that I think as a marketing ploy, if I woke up with a product in the morning that I thought could go to this side and this side, and just decided I'll just send it to the right hand side, it's bound to be suicidal marketing. So I think that the people out there that are booking, we want you to hear Roisin and Rose's voice, and the woman in harmony that are going to go up to the top of Sperns and sing for us someday. They don't know that yet, but they're going to. Isn't that right, Killingbury? And so you're most welcome. Thank you, Liam, for coming in. Thank you, Roisin. I know people keep saying, "What's name is it?" Well, it's Ro the artist, and it's Roisin or Roisin. It depends what end of the border you're on. And because you mentioned your mum's Mayo, Betty, she says Roisin.
Yeah, it's Roisin.
There you go. There, I knew that. People get to be in the back going, that's not the way to pronounce your name, Paddy. And I'm fucking sitting there. I know it's not the right way. I don't need you shouting at me here, right? So that's like me. Paddy, Patrick, and Paddy, or Pat, right?
Pat,
So you're Ro, you're Ro Roisin and Roisin, right? So you're most welcome in, and hopefully down the line again as your career expands on, which it will, you'll both come back in and chat to me. I hope it wasn't too tough for you. You're going to do a couple of songs now. Do you want to mention just to people the songs you're going to do, and then they'll transport in and you'll probably do them? I know it sounds mad.
Yeah, I'm going to play Hey Thomas and Girls.
That sounds deadly. And as I say, thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Liam.
Thanks, Paddy.
Massive friend of all that you do. And thank you, Roisin.
Thank you.
And thank you from your mammy from Mayo. Let me say Roisin. I'm sure she'll be proud of that. Say, what the fuck's that guy on? So hopefully everything will go good for you, and congratulations on what's happening next week, and hopefully we'll have a podcast out to realign with you, putting out the Radio 1 and all week, and hopefully for your fans out there you'll get something new about you, and thank you both for coming.